So Trello doesn't need to be just used for your game stuff. You guys could link to a lot of other things. You could create boards for a lot of other setups, however you really want to do it. I'm going to show another way that I'm going to use it to be tracking your guys' individual projects. Okay, so let's say that I want a copy of your guys' board set up. So I'm going to take this link right here. This is your board, and I'm going to go in and have an overall management board where I'm looking. So student one, that's now Walters underscore Gabriel underscore red beard Ronnie. Okay, and I am going to add an attachment to this card. So I'm going to paste that link and I'm going to attach. Now, when I'm looking at this board, it's assigned as I'm looking through your stuff. If I go into your board and I see that you are not going to meet your quota, that let's say you're on milestone 1 and we're close to the end of the sprint and it looks like you are behind and all your stuff is still in the sprint, you haven't moved it off, I'm probably going to put you in where I'm watching you. So I can see that you're behind. You're not looking like you're meeting your projected amount. So for a sprint of 2 weeks, you've identified that you need to put in on that current sprint 25 hours and you've only put 5 hours in, or you've put 35 hours in and you haven't moved any cards and it looks like you're not making any progress, you're behind on your task. You still have deliverables for each sprint. Your sprint should be treated as an immovable state. When you hit that end of the sprint, you need to have hit your quota, okay? This quota, that's what I'm looking at. So are you on task? Are you behind? Did you finish all your stuff? And you're looking at what you could do now. So let's look at that too. So I just showed you guys how I could link to your board by just copying the link. Okay, but let's say that you have moved all of your stuff over and you've addressed everything for that week. Okay, now if there was something that was maybe related around these, I would go ahead and look at that and go ahead and start working on that now instead of waiting for the next sprint to start. But let's say that all of your code base was good. You don't have any identified issues. You're just waiting on a review. I would go ahead and look at what would be the next thing in your milestone that you'd want to start implementing and go ahead and get started on that. Okay. So I would go into my sprint backlog and say, I needed to implement some more user interface screens, or I needed to implement some more stuff on that. Maybe I was going to start on that for the next sprint. I would go ahead and move that into the current sprint and start it, and just work from there. That would allow you additional time since you've built in extra time and you finish your stuff early. Now you got extra time to do some stuff. That would also afford you the ability, if you needed to do some more research to find out how to implement some of those things. Maybe you know how to do the user interface and create the screens from watching code, but you're not exactly sure how to line up your buttons how you want. That's when you need to start doing some research and you got some time to do it. Okay, so there are multiple ways that we can use Trello. We can link and nest boards within boards. I want to show you another thing that we can do. We can also, let's just call this test card. So if I create a test card, I can actually, let's do item 1 and item 2. I can actually take these items and link them to a checklist item in that test card. So if I added a checklist, I can paste that link, and now that becomes an item in there. Okay, and I could do that with test item 2. Let's get that link. So this wouldn't really apply so much for this project, but you could use that for future projects. Or let's say you're using this to help manage your homework and stuff like that. You could create a card for all of the items that you needed to do for the week and start checking off. I could do this with an entire board too, where I'm looking at that stuff. So I could go to that board, look at that item. That's now done. I could go ahead and check it off here. So the item does not have to be on the board. It could be anywhere. It could be on a new board that you created for some other task, and you could have it on there. So that's just some other ways that you could use Trello. Trello does allow for you to do a lot of customization. There are, if you go in the menu, there's power-ups on the version that you guys have. You have one power-up that you guys can use, which does help with doing things like automation or making it easier to add files. We're going to be using, so for ours, we're going to be using a power-up automatically, but if you are creating other boards, you could use those for doing different types of things. So setting up different items on there for what you want to do. You could have cards age, you can have cards repeat, you could have cards countdown for when they're due. You could have them assigned to a calendar to give you due dates of things that you need to do, so that you could just, helps if I spell calendar right. So if I wanted to do this, I could see items of when they're due to be able to track them for future use. So if this was homework type stuff that I'm trying to track all the things that I need to do, say it was college applications, whatever it was, we could pull up and have a calendar feed, and you could feed this into your Google calendars or your Apple calendars, whatever you want, to be able to track your due dates and everything like that. So that's just other ways that you can use Trello for your own purposes outside of this class. All right.